So today we're going to do something a little bit different. As you can see, my review space is a bit taken up at the moment. I'm trying to get rid of my MCU Marvel Legends, or at least some of them. There are the ones that I'm going to be keeping. But going over to my workstation, this is going to be the subject of today's project. Now, you may be able to guess what it is based on the skulls that you see in the background, but this is eventually going to be turned into my Marvel Legends Ghost Rider Hellcycle. So there's a bit of inspiration taken here and there. There's the Mezco Hellcycle, but this is actually the picture that I used. That's the picture that actually inspired me to start painting this thing. What I want to do is deconstruct the whole thing, and I'm going to paint the engine red to make it look like it's burning with hellfire. Of course, we're going to paint the tires to look like fire, and we're probably going to do a few other things here and there, like put the skull on the front. But we shall see. Nothing is set in stone as of this moment. But we're going to take it apart and see what we can come up with. So here we begin the long process of deconstructing and taking apart this whole motorcycle. If you plan to do any customs like this for yourself, be like a model car or whatever, or anything like that's mildly complicated like this was, you may actually find some benefit in filming the process of you taking it apart, because this clip right here I had to go back to upon reconstruction because I completely spaced on where certain screws were supposed to go and how things are supposed to fit together. As you can see, I tried to keep things organized as well as I could, but nearly everything on this motorcycle got repainted in some way, so none of this is going to stay organized whatsoever. So filming your process is a definite benefit if this is something that you are going to do. Of course, it also probably helps you if you keep things in the frame of your camera, because this part specifically I was struggling with, and then I went back to look at it, and it's totally not visible whatsoever. So it took a bit of trial and error to figure out how to reconstruct this, which you guys will see coming up here in a bit. But yeah, this is this is the thing. This is the thing taken apart. Woohoo! So we're gonna start out here painting the engine block. I wasn't terribly sure how to go about getting a kind of smoldering, burning, glowing effect on the engine, so this is just me kind of experimenting. As you can see, I didn't terribly shake up my spray paint too well, but ultimately it's not going to matter. I hit it with this yellow and I hit it with an orange as well, but in the end I completely negated both of those and painted the engine red. I also started to spray paint these tires, which was an incredibly bad idea because spray paint, and I knew it when I was doing this, but spray paint does not dry on rubber very well. In fact, it ends up being quite tacky to the touch, not aesthetically. But yeah, this is just a bad idea. So if you attempt to paint anything that's rubber or like that soft PVC plastic, absolutely do not use spray paint because it's not going to look good and it's not going to turn out well. Of course, overall, there's nothing wrong with a little bit of experimentation, which is exactly what this project was to begin with. So now we are going to work on the spinal column, which actually came from a NECA Predator. It was a skull and spinal column accessory, and which was awesome, but I figured it would be better utilized on here. So I was going to, I'm putting it on the gas tank, and I'm trying to figure out where exactly to cut it, because I want to put part of it on the gas tank, and I want to put the base of the spine and the pelvis or tailbone part onto the rear of the motorcycle. So right now I'm just kind of scoring the spine, figuring out which lumbar to cut, and just making a little bit of guide for myself. Obviously, if you're going to do this yourself, be very, 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 very careful, because sharp things are sharp and they can hurt you, especially when you're doing really tight precision stuff next to your fingers. But yeah, trying to tear it apart, the plastic was a bit thick and hard, and these nooks and crannies were kind of difficult to get into, but there is a bit of the spine all severed, and you couldn't really see it, but it fits pretty well on the gas tank. And now we're just going to grab some sandpaper and file down the cut just a little bit so it doesn't look so absolutely disgusting and mangled. Looking at some stickers, I contemplated what to put on this motorcycle for a while, but here are the toy hacks for the Terran Twitch figure from Earthspark. And I took one of her little eye pupil bits and used that on the gas tank so that it looked like the gas tank was just filled with nothing but hellfire. And now I'm grabbing some E6000 to try and glue the spine onto the gas tank, but as you'll see in a second, stemming from me being a somewhat impatient person, I end up wiping the glue off and just using regular super glue, because as strong as E6000 can be, the drying time is very long, and I didn't really feel like waiting that long for it to be finished. And there it is, the holy grail of crafting supplies, the mighty super glue. So yeah, just took the spine off and wiped it with a rag, and now I'm putting just a small line on the base of the spine there, or I guess on the inside of the spine. Anyway, do that, and then we put it on the gas tank, and we're just going to carefully make sure everything is lined up and hold it in place, and hold it, and hold it, and keep holding it until it's roughly dry, which is probably going to take a minute, but it's going to be worth it in the end. And then there's roughly how it's going to look like with the seat. And here is the gas tank all dry, looking not too shabby if I don't mind myself saying. And now we're going to work on the front sort of handlebar, like wheel strut section. I want to paint it black, and for some reason I have it in my mind that paint pens are the answer to everything, which they are not. The challenge here was trying to get this thing into all the nooks and crannies of this part, and I'm going to end up spray painting the thing just a matte black. Yeah, don't do that, Graham. So there's the engine and exhaust painted all red, looking not bad. And also not looking bad are the tires, but of course they are rather sticky at this present moment. Right there I have a yellow and an orange, as well as that pearlescent kind of orangey color that I'm going to end up painting all over the wheels. So right now I'm just putting the tires back on, because I figured if a little fire got onto the wheels, it wouldn't be terribly out of place. So I start with the yellow around the outside wall of the tire, and I'm going to do it one side at a time, and then I hit it with the orange, an orangey yellow at the top, just to kind of get a nice fade. And of course we do this all around both tires, and it actually stopped the stickiness rather well. Generally you can use an acrylic sealer for that sort of thing, but I actually like the look of the acrylic paint as well, so there's that. And now we're just going through, I skipped ahead, I already painted both sides of the tire, so now we're just putting on the pearlescent paint, and it doesn't create that much of an effect, but it gives the flame tires just a little bit of an ethereal kind of feel. So going back outside to paint the engine, I hit the engine block with a little bit of hot pink, and these outer engine bits I hit with a darker red, and then the lighter red as well, just to give it a little bit of more dynamism in its look. And there they are. I also painted that rear wheel structure matte black. And then here's the engine block. I hit it with just a bit of orange and an even smaller bit of yellow, and then added a fade on that rear wheel piece so that the fire looks like it's radiating out of the engine and hitting the rest of the motorcycle. Going back to the sticker contemplation, I kept out the Twitch stickers. I also pulled out some stickers from the Velocitron Burnout figure from Toy Hacks. I thought about using those long strips and putting it on the gas tank just to give the bike a little bit of a sporty kind of feel. I also thought about these because they kind of look like flame stripes and the colors matched, but I actually don't end up doing either. And then going outside to actually paint the handlebars black. And then here's roughly how everything is going to shape up. So yeah, not looking too bad. Moving on now to the front of the motorcycle, I had two options. I could go with the windscreen and light that came with the motorcycle, or I could go with that skull. I really wasn't sure which one I wanted to do, so I did a little bit of both. That's one thing we're not going to do, but I ended up taking that light off just so that I could paint the inside orange so that it looked like a burning hellfire light. And there it is, not looking bad, but now we're going to hit it with just a bit of yellow to just to match the flames. And we're going to be careful not to overdo it. I'm just going to do a little bit of yellow here and there. So while we're waiting for that to dry, we're going to turn our attention back to the handlebars. And they didn't turn out the best. The chrome is kind of peeking through here and there, so I'm going to go and repaint it. I think it may be a problem with the chrome itself. But here is the windshield with the light reapplied, looking pretty good. And I kind of wish that I had used this, but I do end up going with the skull. And then, of course, here's me painting both the handlebars again and also the actual chassis of the motorcycle, just so everything looks uniform, making sure to get in all the little nooks and crannies, especially on the handlebar section. And I also just wanted to paint the kickstand as well. Right, so now begins the reconstruction process. I put the rear wheel structure onto the engine, and the fade turned out looking pretty good. And now I'm just trying to figure out roughly how the bike is going to look as well. There's the chassis all completed. And there's the outside engine parts that are made from the darker red, and I'm going to grab some sandpaper and just sand down the pegs because they're filled with a bunch of extra paint. And there were some lessons learned here. The first one being, don't put that piece on yet, because as I learned, you actually need to put the chassis on first, but you know, novice mistakes. And this mistake resulted in me snapping one of the pegs off of the engine piece, so good job, Graham. So right now I'm just getting the chassis back on and reaffirming to myself that this is in fact the correct way to do things. And then there's how the exhaust looks too, and the gas tank and the handlebars turned out looking pretty well. And yeah, now just contemplating what to actually do with the front end. In the meantime though, I decided to add the fire fade to the chassis as well, just because it's right next to the engine. I only paint the insides because obviously the inside is the part that's right next to the engine, but I still want to leave the black of the chassis. So I hit it with the red, and then of course we also go back and hit it with a little bit of orange and a little bit of yellow. And I did the same things here with the front and back wheel fenders and as well with the gas tank, just so that everything looks a little bit uniform. I only hit the bottoms of these. I kind of wish I had done a little bit more, but they turn out alright. And then here's everything finished for what you can see. You can't really see them well right now, and you can see mostly just a lack of anything, but that's roughly how it's all going to come together. And then here's the chassis as well, looking pretty good. It's a minimal and simple but effective effect, essentially. And there you can see all the black bits of the frame looking pretty uniform, and looking all right. And this section of video is too long, so I'm just kind of rambling now. But there is the thing that you see. And going further, we start to begin the reconstruction process, which is where the first clip came in handy, and I actually constructed and deconstructed this thing several times because I incorrectly assembled things. The handlebars were a complete conundrum because I completely forgot that they are actually supposed to split in half to go into their proper steering module. So I'm learning from before, sanding off the extra paint on the pegs, and I'm also going to go in with an X-Acto knife and clear out the paint from any holes, just so that everything fits in there like it should. And do we do it? Oh yeah, the pegs were 2 different sizes, so you just got to make sure that they line up properly, and it fit in there perfectly. So just redoing the same thing on the other side, and I actually took an X-Acto knife and shaved down the peg a little bit so that it fit in there, and eventually when he gets back, he's going to clip off the broken bit and slide it right in there, and it fit perfectly. And this half-hour clip is sped up 10,000 times because I didn't realize that this happened. So I thought that I might have been missing a screw. I thought that I might have put a screw in the wrong place. But it turns out that I am just a simple-minded creature. And the handlebars actually split in half and went into their according apparatus. So now we can continue on with the reconstruction, getting all the screws properly in place, and making sure that we follow our step-by-step processes so that we don't make a fool of ourselves. Yeah, here are the wheels and everything put back together and looking absolutely fantastic. Look at that! Ah! So now comes the critical design moment, and there is the headlight adorned to the front of the motorcycle. It clearly didn't want to be on there because it popped off, but there's the skull, and the skull was obviously going to be the choice from the beginning. So we're going to grab our trusty dusty super glue and just put a little bit on where the skull meets the handlebars. So that little crux right there, and then on the back of the skull where it meets the actual handlebars. And now we wait, and we wait, and we wait, because this is a good thing, and you have to wait for good things sometimes. And oh my, what a good thing this is. Look at that. Fantastic. And of course, final bits, we got to put the exhaust back on. Okay, and now we work on the one of the last final touches. We have the base of the spine. I was going to paint the rear tail light and license plate black, but I decided that the spine looked better in its place. So we're gonna grab our heat gun because we need to make this thing curve with the curve of the fender. And be very, 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 very careful once again with a heat gun, because believe it or not, a heat gun is hot. And especially when you put it down, you have to be careful because that metal tip will burn and melt everything. And especially plastic. And there you can see it was actually became softer than I thought it would. But now we're just holding it, trying to make it keep its shape. But we are going to use its malleability at the moment to go ahead and apply it to the fender. Just putting a straight line of super glue on the rear there and applying it and holding it and waiting one last time for this little simple piece of effect. And there she is, all completed. And lastly, we have the chrome foot pedals. I'm going to go outside and paint those a matte black just for uniformity. And while we're waiting for that to dry, we're going to grab our silvery paint pen and color in the rear view mirror of the Hellcycle. Because even though Ghost Rider is a hellish being who probably is very aware of his surroundings, it's still nice to know what's coming up behind you. And while we're waiting for that to dry, we're going to grab a yellow and an orange paint pen and color in the front turning lights on the motorcycle. So we're going to start out with an orange, and we're just going to dab it on there. Not really moving it around, more like stippling it, just so that we get an even spread of the paint on both sides. So that looks pretty good, and then now we're going to go ahead. Oh, what is he doing? Oh, that's right. We're also going to paint in the screws because the silver screws are kind of a distraction. So I have a satin black acrylic paint that just went in there and covered up all the silvery screws so that they are less noticeable. And now we're going to dab a little bit of yellow on the front of the lights so that it looks like they are shining. And same with the handlebars. I had the kind of problem where the black paint didn't really work that well, but screw it. I put them on there anyway, and I ended up going with a black paint pen and working to get in all the little crannies and things so that it looks completely finished. And speaking of completely finished, there is our Hellcycle. And there he is, our big man, our rider of ghosts, with his Hellcycle. And I'm just going to let these pictures speak for themselves a little bit. Now, I did end up going and adding a few stickers here and there just to give it a little bit of extra flair, which you can see here. Looking badass. This project came out quite well. The bike is just a little bit small for Ghost Rider to ride, but I mean, 1/12 scale is such a finicky thing anyway, so for what it is, I think it looks well. So anyways, that's that. Thank you guys for checking this out. If you enjoyed this random bit of content, let me know. I certainly quite enjoyed building it, and haven't been able to stop looking at it for the past 3 days. But anyway, I hope you guys are having a lovely time wherever you are, whatever time it is, and I will catch up with you guys later. Peace.